This is over under stat totals, ones that I found interesting. And I'm thinking about placing at least 4 of the bets that I'm going to say on here. I'm going to start with quarterback. Josh Allen, 27.5 pass TDs. Lamar Jackson, 5.5 rush TDs. Joe Burrow, 28.5 pass TDs. Herbert, 3,600.5 passing yards. Caleb Williams, 23.5 pass TDs. Which one of those do you like the best, over or under, that you would pick? Joe, you seem to have an opinion. I'm going to go with you.
Well, I just laughed at the Caleb Williams one. 23.5 touchdowns for a rookie. Like, I understand what he has at his wide receiving core, but holy crap. Like, that's a lot, I think, on a young guy. I would take the under on that because I would think that they would want to give more to the running backs and stuff like that in his first year. But I would take the under on that.
The under? So I saw that one and I thought that was an easy over for me. Like, I saw Caleb at 23.5. Like, that's like 1.8 touchdowns or whatever a game. Like, that's not a crazy number to put up. Not in my estimation. I think if you have the receiving core that he has, I think that 23.5 touchdowns is an easy number for him in year one. Like, I could see Caleb Williams having 28 to 30 touchdowns would kind of be the number that I would project for him if he plays 17 games this year.
Well, what was it, 23.5?
23.5.
CJ would have missed it by half a touchdown last year. And I don't think I'll bet on any rookie quarterback to be as good as CJ Stroud was last year. It's about as good as it gets. I know he missed 2 games, so I guess you could argue that if Caleb Williams plays the full season and performs at a similar level, he passes it pretty easy. Out of these ones that you just gave us, Tony, you know which one of those is the easiest, most locked-in bet ever. Knock on wood. I don't want to jinx anything, but, I mean, come on.
3,600
yards here. What are we even talking about here? 3,600?
Yeah.
He could do that with his left hand. He could go for 3,600 yards this year with his left hand in 17 games. You can rip one of his fingers off. Whichever one was the bad finger, rip that finger off. I'm still taking over.
How many did he throw for last year?
3,100. In 11 games.
Was that left-handed?
In 11 games, Joe. In 11 games.
I know, but that's what we're talking about. Like, you're making these bets, and you're hoping that these players play all the games. But if Herbert doesn't do it again, like, we can't just go out there and go, oh, he's going to do it left-handed. He can do it right-handed. He can do it with one leg. Well, apparently last year he couldn't. Apparently he couldn't last year.
When you talk about all
now you're
players,
going to now you have worse wide receivers than he had last year, and you have a worse running game, and you're going to go to a running game.
A worse running game? What are you
Gus
even
Edwards
looking at?
is not a great. When did he become a great running back in this league? When did anybody ever go? Gus Edwards is the guy I want as my running back. Nobody.
He had more rushing yards.
Who wants a running back named Gus Edwards? Nobody.
Gus Edwards had more rushing yards last year than Josh Jacobs on the Raiders.
Oh, my God.
He had more rushing yards last year than Austin Eckler on the Chargers. Anyways, my point being, he's not even an injury risk if you look at it, because Herbert, he messed up his finger, but reports were that was like a 3 to 4 week injury. He could have played the last 2 games, but they kind of just shut it down because the season's already over. He plays his last 2 games. You think he gets 400 yards in the combined games, Joe, in those 2 games? I guarantee you he does, and he's not even really an injury risk, because when Herbert has had even major injuries, he's played through those major injuries. 3,600 yards is asking the guy to finish in the top 20 passing this year. I mean, the line should be at 4,600, not 3,600.
I thought the line would be like around 4,200. And so I was scrolling through and I was trying to find out where it was at. I think if I was going to go something low for Herbert, it would probably be touchdown passes, because I think as to where they've thrown a lot more down in the red zone, I think that's going to be more of a commitment to running the football there. But 3,600 yards passing, if he plays 17 games, he better throw more than 3,600 yards. And the thing Joe's talking about, the injury thing, I think that's kind of why Burrow has the 28.5, is because if you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, you should be able in a system where they rely on everything goes through Burrow. I mean, we saw that last year. Like, the offense looks so much more different with Browning in there. And it wasn't even just a quality of play. It was like the style of plays that they were running. Like, there was just a lot more in there to help Browning be successful. So I think if you think Burrow can have a healthy year, that's 28.5 is another good one. The one that I was kind of under on was the Lamar Jackson rushing TDs. Because I think if you have a healthy Derrick Henry, that you're giving the ball a lot more to Derrick Henry than you would have in the past. Like, even not to say that there's just like a huge difference between him and the guy Joe hates, Gus Edwards. But like, I think Gus Edwards had 12 touchdowns last year or something like that. Like, he had a big touchdown number. So I just think that they want to go away from putting Lamar Jackson in those situations where he's going to take even those extra closer hits down by the goal line. So I would be there.
And average 5 yards. And average 5 yards per carry, Tony. I just want to throw it in there before Joe goes ahead and
running back numbers are going to be inflated working with a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, anyways, because you're gonna put another defensive player towards Lamar Jackson, especially down in the end zone. And I think you're right, Tony. I was looking at that one too because I was like, dang, I thought 5.5 rushing touchdowns for Lamar Jackson. I go, that would probably be an easy one. But then you go back and look at what he's done the past couple of years. It's 7, and then last year was 5. So when he's getting down to the red zone, he knows that people are eyeing in on him, and it's easy for him either to dump it off to one of his tight ends or wide receivers or hand off to that running back and let him do it because everybody's keying in on him. So this might be the one, like you said, now they have a better running back. And I don't know, because I like Derrick Henry. I love Derrick Henry. Everything about him. But something about me is telling me that he's not going to have a good year even with the Baltimore Ravens. And I hope I'm wrong because, like I said, I like Derrick Henry. I just hate the Baltimore Ravens, probably. That's what it is. But
racist.
Yeah, that was one that when you first put it out there, I was like 5.5. That should be an easy one. But now that you look at it and you look at all the factors, you're probably going to go the under. You probably have to take the under in that.
I would bet the under just for maybe there's a couple games he doesn't play. Maybe at the end of the year he sits out a game or two because division's in hand. They're getting him ready for postseason, or they're using him a lot less as a runner in that way. So I would probably go under there.
Even with Derrick Henry, Tony, I just don't like playing things that I know are going to be super close, and I know that that's going to be right where he's around probably. So I usually just avoid those altogether and stick to ones that I'm very, very confident in, like 3,600 yards for a 5,000-yard passer. Those are the ones I like to stick on and really, really focus my betting on.
See, my luck, I'll put the under on Lamar Jackson's 5.5, and he'll score 6 touchdowns in one game, 6 rushing touchdowns in one game. And it'd be the first game of the season. It'd be like, what?
And so that's my luck. He has 4 rushing touchdowns in week 1, and you got to sweat out the next 16 weeks of football. I would say that one of the things that we think is really great. We've seen it be successful. We love it. We watched Alfred Morris have a big year with RG3 back in the day. Like, I think there is something to having a running back next to a dynamic running quarterback, but there's also something about having a good play action game with a quarterback who can press the field anywhere on the field. And that opens things up. Like, we even see what the play action game does for Brock Purdy and CMC in that relationship in that offense. Like, I just think that when you could kind of have a little bit more safety help when you're playing Lamar Jackson and you're playing the run there. Like, I think it's going to be a lot different seeing Justin Herbert with a commitment to run and having a commitment to play action game, having him under center. I think it's going to be a good year, not a great year. I'm not one of these Chargers fans who thinks the team is going to be a 14-15 win team, but I do think that this is going to be one of the more successful ways for Justin Herbert to play offense is having a commitment to the run. And you'll eat those words, Joe, and you'll enjoy them.
Tony, he only averages 330 yards per game in games that the Chargers have 85 plus yards rushing. That's all.
We're not going to convince Joe that this is going to be good. We're not going to convince Joe to say something positive because he already got burned by Herbert last year. And we talked about that last week during the quarterback ranking. That he's just upset.
He's just upset that his head coach is a broke baby back bitch.
My coach is broke. Your coach wears diapers. It's all the same.
I'll take diapers over broke.
Both of these men would destroy you guys, by the way, like in anything.
Who you taking, Russell Wilson or Jim Harbaugh, Tony? They throw down.
Oh, I'm betting on Harbaugh all day. I don't care if he is 60. Okay, let's go to running backs.
Holy shit, I could have thought he was older than that.
He's 60. Let's go to running backs. And it's interesting that Joe said the thing about Derrick Henry because I wrote down here Derrick Henry at 999.5 rushing yards for the season. 999 yards. They're saying basically 1,000. Saquon Barkley, 7.5 rushing touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, 6.5 rush TDs. Josh Jacobs, 1,025.5 rushing yards. And then my rookie for this category, Trey Benson, 499.5 rush yards.
Those are all scary. But the one I like out of those, Tony, I'll take Derrick Henry getting 1 yard over 1,000 yards. He's done it every year of his career that he's received an RB1 workload. And even last year, I looked it up, lowest attempts per game last year since 2018 when DeMarco Murray was on the team. He still had 1,167 yards on a Tennessee team that was kind of up and down all year and throwing their way back into games often. You go look, Gus Edwards, that terrible guy, averaged 5 yards per carry, had 810 yards last season in a 3 backfield split. Derrick Henry's going to take more of a workload than Gus Edwards does. I think I'm more concerned that, as these running backs age, especially his style and everything, we haven't seen it yet. I don't want to see it. This guy maybe can't handle the volume, and it's all going to fall apart at once. And I'd be worried about him getting injured this year as well. So I like that Bijan Robinson bet, Tony. That one sounds tasty to me. Bijan's going to make a ton of big plays. I think he's going to score 4 or 5 big touchdowns, like 40-plus yard runs that he breaks off this year. And then you tell me all that Kirk Cousins has to do is get the offense into the red zone a few more times for him to hit this over. What'd you say it was, 6.5 touchdowns?
6.5.
That seems light. And I know he had 8 total touchdowns last year, receiving and rushing combined, 4 and 4. I think that's easy for him to double up and go up to 8, 9, 10 touchdowns this year with Kirk Cousins now going to put him in position to score more. Give this man some space to shine, y'all. I want to see him ball out.
Yeah.
Hey, you put everything go into your life savings today, Tony. Go. You don't even have to ask your wife. Just go to the bank, get all that money, go down there and put it on that 6.5 over 6.5 for Bijan Robinson because they're gonna treat that guy like Todd Gurley back in the day. Like they're gonna just run, give him the damn ball, and he's gonna lead. Like Todd Gurley is still top 5 in touchdowns, and he hasn't played in the last 10 years, and he hasn't played in 4 years, 5 years. Like that, Bijan Robinson is going to get fed the ball. Last year, what was the number one complaint with the Atlanta Falcons? You drafted this guy, you didn't use him correctly. Now they're coming in there, this new offense. They're going to run the Sean McVay offense. They're going to run the Rams offense. They're going to give the damn ball to their young running back, and he's going to be the workhorse. So Bijan Robinson, I'm smashing that one quick. Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry, I'm taking the under on both of those. I'm taking the under on both of them. Like I said, I don't know what it is about Derrick Henry. I'm just not liking it. I'm not liking it this year. The Barkley one, as an Eagle fan, you hope they go over 7.5. You hope that they stop going to Jalen Hurts so much when they get down to the goal line, right? Because eventually those hits are going to come up, and you would think they would get a little bit away from the tush push this year because I think they went to it too much last year and it kind of hurt them. But you would hope that you brought in Barkley. So as an Eagle fan, I'm taking the over on the 7.5. But as an outsider looking in, I'm taking the under on that Barkley.
Wow. Barkley and Bijan were my favorites on this list. Like I saw Bijan at 6.5. I thought it was going to be closer to 8.5 or 9. 6 touchdowns in year 2 for a player that's that dynamic. Like again, when we see players like Bijan, CMC, those guys where they're versatile like that, they can have 4 touchdown weeks. They seemingly do that a few times a year when they get to like that. Like Austin Eckler is, in the same kind of style player, right? Receiving back and can run the ball. And he had 20 plus touchdown seasons. Like, I just don't understand why an elevation at quarterback wouldn't put that number at least up around 8 or 9. So I saw that one. The Trey Benson one, I was a fan of his in the pre-draft process. I don't necessarily love the situation where he landed because I still think that James Conner is like, he's in that category of Amari Cooper, of those guys where they just seem to produce and we just forget about them for whatever reason, like whether it's from a real life or a fantasy standpoint, but they just churn out production, good seasons every year. Wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, 1425.5 receiving yards. Justin Jefferson, 8.5 receiving touchdowns. Jamar Chase, 1310.5 receiving yards. Devontae Adams, 1,000.5 receiving yards. And Marvin Harrison Jr., 6.5 receiving touchdowns.
I think the safest one on that list that you just said, Tony, is Devontae Adams over. I think that's the safest one. No matter who's in that quarterback for the Raiders, they got to get the ball to Tay. I think, did he have 1,000 yards, like barely over 1,000 yards last year, even with some abysmal games in there where he hardly got any targets? I think he just got over 1,000 last year too. It would take an injury, I think, for him to miss out on 1,000 yard receiving this year. And Devontae Adams hasn't been a guy that's suffered a lot of injuries lately, so I trust him. One that's interesting to me is the Jamar Chase one, because if he stays fully healthy all 17 games, his numbers can be right around there anyways, right around 1,400, 1,300 area. So if you're kind of like hedging your bets here, what's most likely to happen? Is it more likely that Burrow and Chase remain healthy all 17 games and put up production like he did his rookie year? Or is it more likely that one of them suffer any kind of injury that hasn't missed any time or teams just drop back and cover 2 against the Bengals this year because they lost Joe Mixon and the rushing attack isn't as strong as it's been in previous years, and they just kind of don't have that absolutely dominant 1,500, 1,600 yard season like a lot of people are expecting this year. So I think a lot can go wrong and cause Jamar Chase to go under here. So that was the other one that I thought was a little bit interesting, maybe possibly my only under out of all the ones that you sent that I was considering was Jamar Chase under 1,310.5 yards is what I have written down. I don't know if that's the right number or not.
Jamar is 1310.
1310, yeah.
Yeah.
That might be the crazy one.
Seems easy.
Because when I'm looking at these, I think for some reason in my mind, I think the easiest one would be to take the over on Marvin Harrison Jr. And the reason I think it's because, one, Arizona's going to be in a lot of losing efforts where they're just going to get a lot of garbage time touchdowns. Because we went through Arizona's schedule, right? And I showed you guys Arizona's schedule. Their first 8 games, they could end up 0-8, and that's how bad. It's a very tough turnaround for them, especially with no defense. So they're going to be slinging that rock a lot. And Murray, when you're a quarterback, you're looking for who? Your best wide receiver every time. And I just think he's going to benefit from that. And like you said, we can have a couple. He could have a 3 touchdown game right off the bat, and we're good to go. But yeah, I'm looking at that one going, yeah, that connection is going to be there. And when you're losing, you're looking for your best wide receiver, and he's going to get some easy touchdowns at the end of the game.
I forgot to look up and see what the best season, the best connection was for him and DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a different type of receiver, but I do think he will get him the ball and be connected with him early on the season. I do like that one to go over. I like Devontae Adams to go over. I like Jamar Chase on the over because it's not, to me, the great thing about Jamar Chase is he can take the intermediate ball. Like he can take like a quick slant or a smoke screen. He can take that ball 70 yards to the house. The one that I feel like is a strong under candidate for this one, while I think Justin Jefferson's going to have a great season, I don't know if the touchdowns are going to be there for him, because if you're trying to take something away, the part of the confidence that you need to have throwing into double teams, especially when you're down towards like the red zone area, and if they really can discourage throwing the ball to him, I don't know. I think Sam Darnold is going to be looking like, hey, I don't want to make that mistake. JJ McCarthy is going to be looking like, hey, they have the double team over there. Let me just go to the person, Jordan Addison, who has the one-on-one. Hawkinson, when he's back, oh, he's got a one-on-one. Let me do that, as opposed to knowing where the double team might have a little bit of a window open, where you have a veteran like Kirk Cousins who's going to maybe try and, feed his guy the ball in that situation. So I think 9 touchdowns for Justin Jefferson might be a little bit more on the high side for me in this one, just because of quarterback play. Nothing to do with that. And then Tyreek Hill at 14.25, it's a big number. And then every year we talk about this, there seems to be more and more of like the little small injuries. I think they add up to where like you're betting on Tyreek Hill to have his 3rd consecutive healthy season in a row, above on the on the wrong side of 30, I believe. So I just wouldn't feel comfortable picking that one as far as making a season-long bet for that one to hit. Let's finish up this over-under segment with sack monsters. I couldn't find one for your guy Max Crosby on the app I was using, and so I got Myles Garrett at 13.75, Micah Parsons at 13.25, TJ Watt at 15.25, Chris Jones at 11.25, and then Laiatu Latu 7.25 for the Colts. So any of those jump out at you as a clear over?
I'll make it real simple. All of them. I'm taking the over on all of them.
I'm with you, Joe. I think the Chris Jones one is the only one that gives me a little bit of concern.
Yeah.
11.25 sacks. Tough for an interior rusher, but he rushes off the edge a lot. So he might hit that number too. I like the overs on all of them too.
That's the only thing with the Chris Jones was like remember in that Chargers game last year, they left him out there so he could hit that bonus because he needed that 10th sack at the end of the year. So I think that one's under. I really like the Laiatu Latu one to get there. I think the Colts have a very underrated defensive line. They were able to bring back the interior guy, Grover Stewart, with Buckner and Samson Ebukam. I think they had like 4 guys on their defensive line that had like 7+ sacks last year. And so I think Laiatu is going to be able to get a lot of one-on-ones on this defensive line. And this guy is going to have a chance to compete for defensive rookie of the year in my mind. I think he's going to be able to put up a really nice number, and he's going to be able to be up there from a pressure standpoint and a sack standpoint. So, yeah, I probably wouldn't put over on the Chris Jones total, but the rest of them I would feel very comfortable, especially like TJ Watt being at what did I say, 15.25. So he's got to get 15.5 sacks. It just feels like that's what he does.
That's what he does.
Year,
yeah.
That he's just in that ballpark, and why he's a future Hall of Famer. That's over under. So if I had to put in a card, let's just say I had to pick 4, I would go Herbert over 3,600. I would go Bijan Robinson over 6.5 TDs. I would go Devontae Adams over 1,000 yards receiving, and I would probably pick Myles Garrett 13.25 sacks. Or 13.75. So he'd need 14 sacks this season. That would be my 4 for my card.